see everybody this morning. I wish it were more possible to be with people, because what we're finding out is the longer we're apart, the harder it is for us to see ourselves as together. And that actually is coming from brain changes. And so I thought it might be time to talk a little bit about what happens a little bit when we socially distance. What are we missing that people are really craving? And what is it that families are finding that makes it really hard when you're together so much, like parents and kids and all that stuff. But at the same time, what also is challenging when you can't have that? And there we're talking about people who are in social isolation, who are not getting that. And the chemical that really keeps coming up again and again and again as vital is called oxytocin. Now, many of us females are very familiar with oxytocin as the chemical that is released at the time of birth. So after you've been through all this trauma, your brain goes, yeah, but oh, look, and it's mine. And when you do things like you switch and you hold the infant and you bring it to your body and you put tension between the two of you and you gaze at it, this thing you've produced, which is going to be a lot of work for quite some time. And then it suckles. In other words, it's actually connecting. And then we do the thing with our fingers and our hands. And what they found out over time is if you can also get the male who was involved in this or the partner who is involved in this to do the same thing, well, not the suckling maybe, but all the other stuff, it bonds. And oxytocin is this amazing chemical that binds us together. And it turns out that a lot of the things that help our brain produce oxytocin, which is a great hormone, are wired into the amygdala, which is that primitive survival part of your brain that I need to get my needs met. I have to watch out for threats and I have to get things that give me pleasure. And oxytocin, we've always known it was on the high side of the emotional column. In other words, when we get that touch, when we get those things, yeah. But what we didn't think so much about maybe until times like this is how important that is to human beings, to having a sense of community and unity. And so the bonding phenomena, how we bond, how we feel the like, how we feel we are like, how we find those connections that make us whole, that's how oxytocin is helpful. And it turns out that when we produce that oxytocin, it also elevates our immune system. So what it means is when we come together, when we shake hands, and that's why that hand in our hand thing that we do at PAC is so critical to well-being. When we do those things, we start to feel more connected. And we actually, interestingly enough, some research shows, trust each other more. We want to spend time in the same space. And we start bonding together. Now, here's the downside of oxytocin. As we bond and bind together and form a group, there's an inside group and then there's an outside group. And if we aren't careful, we bond into these units and then those are different. It's an us versus them thing. And this new phenomena that we're now dealing with, some people for 2 weeks, some for 3, some even longer, is creating boundaries where we've never had them before, where it's getting harder and harder for people to feel truly connected. We're talking about it a lot, and certainly looking at somebody, gazing. And you can also do it, it turns out, with some of our animals, some of our close animals. We can do the same kind of thing, and we feel that relationship, that bonding. They're mine, we're together in this. So here's the challenge, though, for our social distancing, we're missing that which makes us us. And so now we're trying to do it, perhaps with visual regard. So what does that mean? Well, that may mean that FaceTime and Skype and things like Zoom are more important than ever. But it also means without those opportunities, wow, we're not only missing the kinesthetic experience of connecting and producing oxytocin, but we're also missing a lot of visual regard that gives us, because you have to gaze. Now, gaze means, in our world, take your hand and put it right in front and make a little circle. This is where you're using binocular vision for social engagement versus binocular vision for task engagement. And one of the tricky parts about being on a Zoom call or in a Zoom meeting or in a Skype meeting or whatever it is you're doing interactively on the computer is, if we're still focused on task, we're still not giving each other that opportunity to really look at each other and connect to each other. And that, it's awkward because there's a group and there's all these little faces, and it's like, well, who do I connect to? Well, I connect to you, and then I leave everybody else out. So at PAC, we have a strategy, and it's one of these things where what we do is we turn our body sideways and we make sure our face is connected, but that allows us to make eye contact and to gaze and to show facial expression, which is another way that we encourage another person to want to be with us. And then we can look away together, but then we look back. Because when I look away and look back, I send you a message. It's a visual message that say, I'm over here, I'm sort of doing, but now I'm with you. And so what we may want to think about doing while we're apart is, when we're together on sort of these kind of calls, or we have these opportunities, we might want to pick up something, be it a cup of coffee or something else, and look away and say, what you got in your cup? Something hot or something cold? Oh, something hot? Yep, me too. Sure enough. Now, tea or coffee for you? Oh, that's right. You love tea. Me, coffee. Yeah. And I like the flavor. For you, is it the caffeine or just the flavor? Yeah. Now, how many of you are noticing, if you're watching, I'm giving a lot of facial expressions because I can't do any of the other ways in which we would typically form this bond. And I'm pausing, hoping the other people or person on the call will fill in the blank. But by doing that, it starts to feel like a conversation, not a monologue. So a monologue is one directional. Pauses allow for the other person to have input. And maybe it's only visual input. Maybe it's a physical motion. Maybe, but if we're not looking at them, we'll totally miss it. So I thought I'd bring up oxytocin because we're getting pretty far into this thing. And everybody's talking, oh yeah, they're all talking. Everybody's talking, listening. I don't know that they're all, I'm not sure there is that in everybody. But what I would say is this is going to be a tough week for lots of us. Our financial, not terrific. Our social, not terrific. Our food, we might be moving more to comfort eating than healthy eating. Even our activity level, we aren't encouraged to be as active as we've been, either physically or socially. So trying to stay active cognitively can be sort of lonely if we can't figure out how to get together to do something. And finally, how well we're sleeping. So if you wiggle your finger around and go, ooh, finding the new balance, building these new muscles right now. What I didn't want us to lead out or give up is producing oxytocin, because as soon as we stop seeing ourselves as us, what do we have? So maybe make a little extra effort for a reach out and a connect How you doing? Here, here, or here? Oh, that's not good. Facial expression that gives a sense of empathy. It turns out empathetic responses are incredibly powerful when it comes to helping release oxytocin for both of us. So there's a difference between dipping down into misery, both of us, and saying, that is hard, and I hate it for you, and I hate it for me. There's one thing I want you to know. I really care about you, and I want us to figure out how to dial it up. Take a deep breath. Okay, friends, that was about 10, more or less. I wasn't keeping track because I was more interested in the connection. So if you need us, if you want us, if you just like us, please let us know. Oh, and by the way, next Tuesday afternoon, we're going to pull together. We're calling it a town meeting because we want to talk about the silent and invisible population that we care a lot about. People living with dementia, the families who care and love and support, and the healthcare workers who are trying to support. And so we want to come together because I want to speak a little truth to power. And I want to make sure when I speak, I represent all of us in some form or fashion, because together we're a lot stronger than if we're just trying to do it on our own. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Corey, for the help. And see you soon on Zoom, on Facebook, on YouTube, Skype, or maybe even at a social distance. I run into people all over the place. And even with a mask on, they seem to recognize me when I wear my shirt. Anyway, see you soon. Take care. Blessings.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to help us spread Teepa's positive approach message around the world. And don't forget to click the bell to get notified when new videos are posted.